Growing up as a person of color, you just see so many injustices. As a teenager, you saw the way that I was treated, my friends were treated, and it just, just at some point you just wish that things were different.
Dolores Huerta, activist, mother, feminist, revolutionary mind. Dolores Huerta was born in Dawson, New Mexico in 1930. Huerta, her mother, and her two brothers soon moved to Stockton, California, where she spent the rest of her childhood. After attending the University of Pacific, she became an elementary school teacher. This job is what jump-started her fire for activism.
In the school where I was teaching, there were a lot of malnutrition to children. So I went to my principal and I said, these kids, you're obviously very hungry. Can I get a voucher for shoes, free lunch for these kids? And his response was, their parents, all they do is drink up all their money. I knew he was wrong.
Dolores Huerta founded the Agricultural Workers Association in 1960. The AFA set up voter registration drives for Latinos to make their voice heard, and they fought for farm worker rights. During her time at the AFA, she met Cesar Chavez.
He said, you and I have to organize a union. And then he said, but we will not see a national union in our lifetime. And I said, why? He said, because the Gores are too rich, they're too powerful, and they're too racist.
Both Huerta and Chavez were part of the Community Services Organization, but decided to leave because the CSO focused more on urban issues. Along with Gilbert Padilla, Huerta and Chavez co-founded the National Farm Workers Association in 1962. The Bracero program was when men were sent from Mexico to replace the American men on the farms that went to fight at war.
This is the vanguard of 1,500 Mexicans brought to the States by the Farm Security Administration. Most are laborers. All of them are bachelors.
The owners of the farms treated the Mexican farm workers very badly.
Allowed to organize into unions, the workers were literally like slaves.
With Huerta and Chavez's combined efforts, they were able to stop the Bracero program. Union protests and strikes often resulted in violence. To ensure that this did not happen, Huerta and Chavez tried to model one of their idols, Mahatma Gandhi. They wanted to make a difference without violence. In 1965, Filipino-American grape workers went on strike so they could get higher wages. They would hold signs that say huelga, or strike. Cesar Chavez had the idea of a march to help the grape workers get more attention nationally.
Cesar said it's going to be a march of penitence. And the workers said, well, we don't have anything to be penitent about. I mean, the growers are the ones that are doing everything wrong. And he said, no, I want everybody to think of something that you've done, some gossip maybe, some fight that you had. Think of your own things in your own life.
On St. Patrick's Day, Thursday, March 17, 1966, striking grape pickers from Delano began a 300-mile pilgrimage northward through the valley of their labor to the state capitol in Sacramento. The march was more than a means of dramatizing a strike, more than a plea for laws to protect farm workers, more than a demand for recognition of their union. It was a symbol of the long, long struggle of California farm workers for a more equitable share of the wealth they have helped to produce.
25 days after the march began, the strikers arrived at the Capitol building in Sacramento. Once there, the crowd's chants could be heard very loud and clear.
The governor and the legislature of California, we say you cannot close your eyes and your ears to us any longer. You cannot pretend that we do not exist. You cannot plead ignorance to our problems because we are here and we are not alone.
This public act is what convinced the growers to finally meet with the farm worker union. Dolores Huerta took charge of these meetings and would negotiate with the growers. The first farm worker contract came out of these negotiations. This contract is what ensured higher pay and better working conditions for many farm workers. In 1988, Huerta was at a protest against George Bush when she was assaulted by a police officer. She ended up in the hospital with fractured ribs and a ruptured spleen. Huerta was 58 at the time, and this attack almost killed her. 5 years after this incident, Huerta was inducted in the National Women's Hall of Fame. In this same year, Cesar Chavez sadly passed away.
Similarly, when Cesar Chavez sat Dolores Huerta down at his kitchen table and told her they should start a union, she thought he was joking. She was a single mother of 7 children, so she obviously didn't have a lot of free time. But Dolores had been an elementary school teacher and remembered seeing children come to school hungry and without shoes, so in the end she agreed. And workers everywhere are glad that she did. Without any negotiating experience, Dolores helped lead a worldwide grape boycott that forced growers to agree to some of the country's first farm worker contracts. And ever since, she has fought to give more people a seat at the table. Don't wait to be invited, she says. Step in there.
On May 29, 2012, Dolores Huerta was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. Si se puede means yes we can. Dolores' chant soon became the catchphrase of the Farm Worker Union. Dolores Huerta proved that they could and would do what was needed. The farm workers would no longer stand silently while they were mistreated. Dolores was not the only person to use her chant in her work.
It was sung by immigrants as they struck out from distant shores and pioneers who pushed westward against an unforgiving wilderness. Yes, we can. It was the call of workers who organized, women who reached for the ballot, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier, and a king who took us to the mountaintop and pointed the way to the promised land. Yes, we can to justice and equality.
Barack Obama translated Si se puede to English and used it as his slogan for his 2008 campaign. Dolores has continued to be a big inspiration to many activists today. She helped them realize that with their voice, they can make a better future.
I go, she has had to change the way her friends think and her colleagues think. As a woman, as a mother of 11 children, anybody who can advocate for over 40 years of their life, probably more than half of their life, and still find a way to raise 11 children. That's an amazing feat.
She was the fire. She was the spitfire. She was the one that went out there and block walked the farm workers. She was out in the field. So was Cesar. But then all the focus was on Cesar because of his hunger strikes, because he had his picture with Bobby Kennedy, because he was the head of the union. But any head of the union can't do it if they don't have the support and a person that literally steered the union in whatever direction it needed to go, and that was Dolores Huerta.
As Dolores Huerta once said, every minute is a chance to change the world.